How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the College Football Podcast with your host, Alec Pecano. On today's show, we will be going over teams that I think will have new coaches in the 2025 college football season. My first half of my week week 12 college football picks, upsets, and game picks for the week, as well as a lot more. Let's get started. I have on the screen next to me 4 schools that I think will have new head coaches going into the 2025 college football season, starting with East Carolina and Mike Houston, who has already been fired. And East Carolina will be looking for a new head coach, and I think they will look at a guy like Justin Fuente, who used to be the head coach at Memphis and Virginia Tech. And here's my reasoning. I think they're going to go with a guy that's a little less. Fuente is known around college football, but he's not a big name. East Carolina is a group of 5 school. I think Fuente, he wants to get back into coaching, and I think the perfect fit for him would be East Carolina because it's a group of 5 and they're a well-known group of 5 school. And I think he could do a good job of recruiting the state of North Carolina and the surrounding states like South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. And he could bring in guys from those states and make East Carolina a good group of 5 school again in the AAC. Next, I've got, and this should probably come as a shocker to most, I've got Mike Norvell at Florida State. I do think that Florida State, the boosters are going to say, you know what? I understand we had a tough season, but I think it's time to get rid. I think Mike Norvell is going to get axed and fired at the end of this year. And bold prediction, the guy I have replacing Norvell just happens to be an alumni of Florida State, Deion Sanders. Look at what Deion has done this year in Boulder with Colorado. 3-9 last year to potentially having a front row seat to be in the Big 12 title game this year. And you're going to tell me there ain't going to be big programs that go after him? I don't buy that for a second. Florida State's going to be one of them because I think they're going to fire Norvell regardless of how the season ends. They will eat that buyout penalty, which is over $70 million, which is just crazy to me. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Mack Brown. And Mack Brown's not going to get fired. I think Mack Brown ends up retiring at the end of the 2024 college football season. And I think watch out for this guy to get another head coaching job in the Power 4. He used to be a coach at Vanderbilt. He's at Middle Tennessee State right now as their head coach. I think Derek Mason will be the one to replace Mack Brown at North Carolina. And here's my thinking on that. So, Mack Brown, an older coach, needs to retire. You could say the same about Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy, who are both Big 12 guys. But I think Mack Brown really does need to retire. He offered his resignation after they lost in pathetic fashion earlier in the season to James Madison. And I think that Derek Mason would fit University of North Carolina well if they give him enough money to become the next head coach. And I like that move for UNC. And then the last one, and the hot seat for this guy has been heating up the last couple weeks. Unfortunately, it is the Gus bus at UCF, Gus Malzahn. I think he will get fired. And in a shocking move, I think a guy that used to play at Alabama that is the current OC at South Alabama will be the next head coach for UCF, and that is Rob Easel. Young, bright, brilliant young offensive coordinator with a good offensive mind. I think he would fit perfectly as the head coach at UCF. As his first, if he wanted to take a head coaching job. If not, I could see a guy like maybe Jeff Scott or Butch Jones or John Gruden maybe taking the UCF job as a bridge to try to get a bigger job down the road. And then a dark horse for me to get fired here is, and I know, and I'm going to go more in depth about this tonight over on my TikTok, which highly recommend following because I've started going live over there. I will be talking more about college football tonight over there, where I will be debating with followers on various college football topics. And one of them is, did Florida make the right decision on getting rid of Billy Napier? Keeping Billy Napier. I'm going to briefly say, I don't think they made the right choice. And here's who I would replace Napier with, because I don't believe the AD, Scott Strickland, that Napier will be back next year. I think they're going to fire him. And like I said, tonight I will go more in depth about that. But if he does get fired, watch out for Herm Edwards to become the next Gators head coach. It won't be Deion. It won't be Steve Spurrier. It won't be Urban Meyer. I think it might be Herm Edwards. He has briefly mentioned that he wants to coach again. He felt like he left on a sour taste when he was the coach at Arizona State. And here's another dark horse. Not to get fired, but to take a better job. Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Look what Kenny Dillingham has done with Arizona State this year. Last year, they were horrific. They've won more games this year than they won last year. I wouldn't be surprised. I come back to this episode 127 of the podcast in the offseason if Kenny Dillingham does take a better job. And watch out, either Florida might hire him. If anybody else has coaching job openings, maybe Temple, because I think Stan Drayton's going to be gone. But that wraps up that. Now we get into my first batch of upset picks for this week. And we're going to start with the first one is Tulsa plus 14 to upset the team I just spoke about in the previous segment, East Carolina. I think this is a game between two teams that are just horrific. And Kevin Wilson's not going to get fired. I'm going to say that. But I think Tulsa has the better offense here and the better chance of winning this game. I'll take Tulsa plus the 14 points. And MVPs, we did good last week with all we did decent with our upsets. We went with upsets last week. We went 4-5-3. We had 3 pushes, which brings our regular season mark to 103. 111-6. Not too shabby. But like I said, first batch of upset picks for the MVPs this week. First one is Tulsa plus 14 to upset East Carolina. Our second upset this week for the MVPs is UCLA Friday night plus 3.5 to upset Washington. Now, I know in the preseason we talked about how we thought UCLA was going to struggle. They've done better than expected in the Big Ten this year. And I don't think anybody was expecting that. Not even me, or not even all the MVPs we have for the podcast. But I think we should take UCLA plus the 3.5 here to upset Washington. I think UCLA could do this. I've got that feeling in my gut that UCLA is going to pull this upset. And then my third upset is Michigan State plus 3. MVPs, this is my favorite upset this week. Michigan State plus 3 to upset Illinois. Illinois is playing with house money right now. They've had a better season than anybody expected. But I think Michigan State's going to play, I'm not going to say spoiler, but they're going to ruin people's seasons down the stretch. And the first one might be Illinois. I like the plus 3 here for Michigan State against Illinois to pull the upset. And now we get to the picks against the spread for all the MVPs. The first one is tonight. It is Eastern Michigan plus 10 to cover the spread against Ohio. Maction, our favorite time of the week. Midweek action tonight and tomorrow night. There's MAC games. But I think we're going to feel good about taking Eastern Michigan plus 10 here. Eastern Michigan can score, and I think they keep this game reasonably close against Ohio tonight. Our next one is Florida Atlantic plus 2.5. And MVPs, if you're going to do a parlay, there's 3 parlays I would do it. I will give them to you after we're done with our picks against the spread. But I would take FAU plus 2.5 to cover the spread against Temple. As we've talked about numerous times throughout the season, Temple is awful. They are horrible. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. And I think FAU, and I hope y'all do too, I think we all think FAU can easily cover this point spread here of 2.5. 2.5 points. Then we've got Arizona State plus 8.5 to cover against Kansas State. Now, I'm honestly, I think this is a trap game for K-State. That is why I like Arizona State plus the 8.5 here. And MVPs, I think, like I said at the end of the picks against the spread here, I will be giving you a parlay I would do. 3 parlays I would do if you're going to bet money. But anyway, I think Arizona State can easily cover this spread against K-State. And the game picks for all the Saturday games will be out on Thursday. Thursday afternoon will be all the game picks for the Saturday games. But anyway, like I said, I think Arizona State covers here. This is definitely a trap game here. Kansas plus 3 to cover the spread against BYU. I think this is a trap game for BYU. They barely survived And we were lucky. As me and all the MVPs, we were lucky last week that BYU won. They got so lucky against Utah that they won. That would have ruined our week in game picks last week if BYU lost. But they won. But I think they're playing with fire here. I think Kansas is 4-6. They need to win their last 2 games. Do I think they can pull the upset here and win outright? I think there's probably I'm going to say 10% chance they pull the upset, but I think they absolutely can cover the spread. And in our last pick against the spread, for the early picks against the spread, is Rutgers plus 5.5 to cover the spread against Maryland. Now, I'm going to say with this one, I'm confident that Rutgers could cover here. And in a second, I will tell you why. I think Rutgers covers this because Maryland, don't get me wrong, they're a good football team. But I don't think they can keep up with Rutgers' offense or defense. Look at what Rutgers' defense did last week. They were pressuring the quarterback. And what does Maryland struggle with? Protecting the QB. And I think Rutgers is going to expose that this weekend. And here are some parlays. A couple parlays I would do. I would take Eastern Michigan plus 10 against Ohio. I would take Florida Atlantic plus 2. And I would even take Florida Atlantic on the money line if you can in a parlay. So the first parlay is Eastern Michigan plus 10 to cover. Florida Atlantic plus 2.5. And Florida Atlantic money line. Second parlay is I would take under 52.5 in the South Florida and Charlotte game, which I will go into full detail about in a second. I would take over 48.5 in Tennessee, Georgia. And then I would take Ohio State, who is favored by 30.5, which you will not see on any of my picks. On any of my picks against the spread or upset picks. I get 30.5. They're favored by 30.5 points against Northwestern. I would take Ohio State on the money line. I would stay away from the spread. 30.5 is too high. If you're going to do anything with Ohio State, do the total or do money line, because you have a better chance. So our second one is Ohio State money line or total, Tennessee, Georgia over and under USF and Charlotte. Now, let's get to the picks against the over-under picks. We're going to start with Tennessee and Georgia, who I just had in a parlay. The total is 48.5 points. I am going to take the over for over 48.5 for one reason, and I think all the MVPs should do the same. Tennessee is going to score at will against Georgia. And they might force some turnovers. Look at Carson Beck's last 6 games. 5 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And everybody was saying coming into the year that Carson Beck was going to be a first-round pick. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. And here's why. And you'll see later on when I do my mock draft for the NFL on my Pro Football podcast, which that'll be at 3 o'clock. But I like the over in the Tennessee Georgia game. Next, Boston College SMU. Total is 54 points. We've seen SMU can score. Take over 54. I think both these teams are going to score a lot of points. You will not be ashamed if you take Boston College SMU total over 54 points in a parlay. And the last one is Charlotte and South Florida. Total's 52.5. Unfortunately, with this one, I am dreadfully going to take the under, and I have to admit, I think I was wrong on USF this year. I was very high on them. I had them winning the American, and boy, do I look I'm not going to say stupid, but do I look dumb? Yes. But the reason I'm taking the under here is we've seen the last 3 weeks with Bryce Archie at quarterback, USF just can't move the football a lot. And that's the one thing that really worries me about this game is Charlotte's going to get up 14 to 20, between 14 to 21 points, and then USF's just not going to be able to score. Look at last week against Navy. They went down 21-0. And they didn't score. They gave up 28 points, which, okay, you kept Navy under 35 points, which is, okay, that's good. But the bad about it is you only scored 7. And I'm afraid that might happen again to USF this week against Charlotte. So, if you're taking totals, do under 52.5 points, Charlotte and USF. I mean, if you're feeling gutsy, then you could take the over, but there's very high risk there that the over doesn't hit and you lose your money. Now we get to game picks and MVPs. These are the game picks for the weeknight games. So we got 3 games. We got Bowling Green, Western Michigan, Ball State, Buffalo, Central Michigan, Toledo. And here's my picks. I would like to hear your picks down in the comments section of this video. I'm taking Bowling Green, Buffalo, and Toledo. Again, that is Bowling Green, Buffalo, Toledo. And then tomorrow night, we've got 3 more action games. We've got Miami, Ohio, Kent State, Eastern Michigan, Ohio, Akron, Northern Illinois. And in those games, I'm picking, again, you could put your picks down below. This is for all of us. But the picks for those games are Miami, Ohio, Northern Illinois. Thursday, we have East Carolina and Tulsa. And I just told you earlier, one of my upset picks is Tulsa. So obviously, and MVPs are upset picks. One of our upset picks is Tulsa, which means we are going to be taking Tulsa to beat East Carolina. And then Friday, there's 4 games. We've got North Texas and UTSA, Wyoming, Colorado State, UCLA, Washington, and Houston and Arizona. And MVPs, our picks for those games are North Texas, Colorado State, Washington, Arizona. So again, that's Tuesday, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Toledo. Wednesday, Miami, Ohio, Northern Illinois. Thursday, Tulsa. Friday, North Texas, Colorado State, Washington, Arizona. And that's going to wrap up the podcast, the college football podcast for today. I will see everybody back here at 3 p.m. And as well, like I said earlier, if you haven't followed the TikTok yet, I highly recommend going and following the TikTok. It is linked in a community poll post on the YouTube. Please go follow it and join the live tonight at 10 p.m. for debates, for questions you may have about the college football playoff rankings, and if you want to debate me on various college football topics. But that's going to wrap up this video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.